right, great. I wanted to get started talking about the difference between the classic network architecture and zero trust. So with the classic network architecture that you're probably familiar with and all of us have worked with for a long time, we have known network devices that are connecting to known applications, authenticating users. And it's all very, it's this kind of a rigid and designed to be a static environment. And what we know is that leaders often find that this type of environment is a challenge for innovation. And with the evolving threat landscape and the focus on privacy and preserving patient confidentiality, all of those things becoming high priorities for your security teams, it can be difficult for them to adapt quickly and move rapidly when things change in this environment. Um, by contrast, we're going to be focusing a lot on this zero trust architecture from Zscaler. And what you'll notice the difference here is architecture not only looks different, but the way that authentication happens is different. It's based on policy. So we're not locked into the boundaries of our network like we were on this side. We're now authenticating people based on policies, which are free to change as conditions change. And I know Stephen's going to talk more about that. The AWS cloud is highly secure and highly trusted and secure by design. And with that, you can feel confident to move your workloads there and be free to innovate. We have a lot of logging available that's integrated and some automated core security that you can automate right within AWS itself. And AWS and Zscaler drive innovation while allowing you to maintain your security posture end to end. We're going to talk a little bit more about the zero trust architecture from Zscaler. AWS knows that customers need confidence when they're building on and migrating to the AWS cloud, and they don't want to have security tacked on the end, right? When you go through a project and you plan everything, and then all of a sudden it's treated as an afterthought, that can really bring your project to a screeching halt and stifle your innovation. So we want to be able to bake that in right from the beginning, and so that security is addressed right from the beginning of the project and through every step thereon. Then your security teams are going to have a little bit more time to focus on tasks that bring further value to your business. We have some trusted partners like Zscaler, who will extend the benefits of the AWS cloud and make sure your organization is secure from end to end. The zero trust architecture solves some specific challenges that healthcare experiences, and Stephen's going to touch on those now for a little bit.
Perfect. Yeah. So hopefully everybody can hear me. As Julie mentioned earlier, my name is Steve Hajny. I work over at Zscaler. I have 9+ years now in healthcare, mainly, right? Working with providers. I've worked with payers in the past, you name it. Actually, I was over at a other company before I came over here where I did deployment mainly, right? So I've seen the horrors that go on in a provider's environment where security is an afterthought because we just need to get our clinicians to their apps fast. And so as Sarah was talking about, things like eliminating the attack surface, I am sure everybody has seen things like Avanti in the CISA, things like a NetScaler in CISA for these day zeros, because what you're doing is you're extending that network out. And that's not good, right? You're giving that public attack surface that says, hey, hospitalprovider.vdi.com is my entryway into my EHR system. And that's a problem, right? Because if I have a vulnerability, now I have to spend cycles on doing that day zero. And if I get breached because that public attack surface is there, it's a whole other nightmare, right? I now have access to the network. And so by being able to reduce that attack surface, and we'll talk more about Zscaler afterwards in the next couple of slides, we're able to eliminate that attack surface completely. So we don't care where your apps are, right? If they're in AWS, if you have some on-prem that you're trying to migrate over to AWS, we just want to be able to get your clinicians or your providers or your nurses, it could even be the janitor, right? If they're doing their time card, to their applications securely and based on what policies you've set. Again, cost and complexity, I was a customer. So I know more than most about the horrors of trying to manage firewall updates, trying to manage direct connects, trying to manage VPNs, right? Oh, somebody did something in phase 2 a little bit weird, and now my VPN tunnel is completely down. How do I solve that? Let's make this as simple as possible. Give me an internet connection. I will give you your application. I will not give you your network, though. So reducing that complexity to give you guys time to do what you do best, which is helping your patients at the end of the day. And of course, workforce experience. Nobody wants to get that call saying, hey, it's DNS again, Steven, it's DNS. Why is DNS so slow? Instead, being able to say, hey, where's the actual problem? Because we are that proxy architecture, we're able to see every hop and be able to tell you where that issue might actually be. It may be that a doctor, and I've had this happen to me, a doctor is too close to their pool and not close enough to their Wi-Fi signal. And that's why they're having troubles. And they're calling help desk saying, hey, it's really slow today. I don't know what's going on. And so being able to see that. And so we'll talk more about that in this lovely slide. So real quick, I don't think I can give you guys a Zscaler presentation without giving you an overview of the 3 products. Because if you're not familiar with Zscaler, it's important to understand who Zscaler is. So first off, we have internet access. That is your inline. I am doing all of your SSL inspection and being able to say things like, you can go to YouTube, can't upload to YouTube. You can go to Google Drive, you can't share things on Google Drive. You can go to AWS and maybe make some configuration changes, but you can't steal my data and run away with it. Things like that. I can get extremely granular. We have generative AI actually right over there that I saw. I just presented on that because what the biggest fear is that I've been talking to CISOs about is this idea of like, how do I restrict who gets access to AI, right? My janitors shouldn't have access to my generative AI where all my data is being stored, right? We should be able to restrict that data down. And we do that because we are the next hop out. And the other thing is we integrate with identity, and it doesn't matter your device. It could be Linux, it could be Mac, it could be Windows, it could be Android, it could be your iPhone. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to be able to get you to where you need to go securely and safely, regardless of location. We also have 150 data centers. It's always a big thing. When I talk to people that are like, hey, man, like proxies are really slow though, right? Like I have to send my data to you. You have a data center in like California and I'm in New York. Yeah, great. We have 150 data centers globally for that exact reason. We actually have SLA on our latency itself. So that's ZIA. What we normally see is kind of this consolidation, right? The do more with less story is very popular in healthcare, I'll say. Everybody's being told that they don't have money and you're not getting money anytime soon. So why don't we save you money, right? By eliminating some of the more, I won't say legacy security stacks, but let's be honest, the legacy security stacks. Next thing is probably my second favorite product we have, and I'll leave my favorite for the end and you'll see why, is private access. So again, getting you access to applications based on who you are and why you want them. I can make it so that if I go home on a BYOD device, you're not getting access to anything. But if I log into my corporate PC on home, maybe I can access things like my EHR system. Maybe I can access PACS, right? Maybe I have remote radiology use cases. VPN is really slow. I actually have a test that I've done that's documented with a timer and everything to show you that there's no bias of me going from Maine, where I live, to Boston for a VPN to go to a PACS system. And it's 30% slower than sending your data to me at Zscaler. If I can get you one extra read a week, let's say, that equals to be 52 reads a year. That's a lot of money that you just generated for your company. And that means that you can now start to afford other things that you're trying to do, right? Other initiatives. Because at the end of the day, we're all very much money driven. If you don't have the money, you don't have the ability to do anything. So the cool thing about that too is it's not a VPN. There is no more like I have a 192 network and everybody can see everybody on the network. No, it's completely hidden by our cloud. And so when I look at an Nmap or I do an NS lookup, all you're going to see is a synthetic IP. You're not going to see what ports it is. You're not going to see the CMD and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly where that server is. It's on a 10.0 network with all these other ones. So it's that user to application abstraction layer. And then my favorite product, because I was in help desk when I first started IT 12 years ago, end user monitoring, right? Digital experience. We've all had those calls like I was talking about where somebody calls you and says, AWS East is really slow today. And you're like, is it though? Are you sure? We don't have any other complaints. You're the first one. And you go, oh, let me troubleshoot. Oh, weird. Yeah, no, it seems like it's slow from your house, but I can't figure out why. What do you think it is? And then I start to drill down deeper, and now I'm doing like a 4-hour troubleshooting call only to find out that your Wi-Fi channel is saturated because you have 1,000 smart home devices. Real story from a very large hospital that I worked with. Since we are your next hop out, we can see all of that. So if AWS East is slow, we'll be able to tell you AWS East is slow versus the ISP issue versus a DNS problem or something of the sort. And now you may be saying, Steven, that sounds really complicated to deploy, right? Like, I don't got time for that. I got like 2 staff. You tell me you're fully staffed here, you're a liar. I know you're a liar because I've never met a hospital system that tells me that they're fully staffed. So 1 agent to rule them all, right? Lord of the Rings style. It's not 1 agent or 1 install that does 3 separate products. It's literally 1 agent. So troubleshooting, 1 agent. All the processing done in the cloud, 1 agent. So simplification, right? I can do packet captures even in the agent itself. I can deploy with IWA. You want seamless SSO because you don't want folks to have to log in. Totally get it. You want to integrate with Imprivata? Great. We can deploy it with MDM or identity. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to help you guys get there faster. So when I think about things like Imprivata, right? The biggest issue that I see in the field is these are normally shared workstations. I go to the doctors with my daughter every so often, right? When she's sick, she's 4, it's how daycare is. And these workstations are left unattended, right? They're just logged in as a generic user, waiting for a nurse to tap in her badge to then go put in the patient notes and everything else. And you might have a generic policy that says like, hey, don't go to DraftKings.com and bet on March Madness, you know, whatever. But we can then actually use Zscaler to get that identity from that user now in Imprivata and be able to assign policy based on that. And so that means that if a nurse Jackie taps in her badge and she shouldn't be allowed to go to YouTube, she's blocked, right? She shouldn't be allowed to access PACS. However, if Dr. Bob comes in right after and Dr. Bob is a radiologist, he should be able to get the PACS, right? He might need to go to YouTube to show you something cool, right? Or, you know, show you a medication that you might need to take as if he's an actual physician, stuff like that. So being able to look at that. And this is kind of what it looks like. So you can see I'm a generic user. You can see that Bill is logged in Imprivata. You can see that Zscaler is also logged in as Bill, right? We are the only provider or the only cybersecurity partner for Imprivata right now. So if you look at our supported documentation or their supported documentation, we're the only vendor there because we're the only ones who do it right now. And this is why it's important. I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but type 2 SSO machines are everywhere. They're oftentimes left unattended. I see it all the time. It's really easy just to plug in a USB drive and start to do some ransomware. And I now get true end user identity, which means if there is a issue on that machine, I now am able to see exactly where that issue was and who was logged into that machine versus having to like correlate 1,000 different logs. I think this is going to be my last slide before I hand it back over to Heather, or Sarah, sorry. Sarah. I'm looking at Heather at the same time. So, you want to take this one? You want me to?
Okay. Thanks, Steven. I would take it after I bring up my notes. True, full disclosure. So just like if you took the time to take a picture over here at our picture booth, what we're looking for all of our patients is better data, better insights, and better outcomes. And so migrating data and apps to AWS can accelerate your transformation to achieve those goals. Some of our customers will start with their clinical data and move their data in first. And other customers may decide to migrate their applications first and their data later. We all know that mergers and acquisitions are basically a constant in healthcare. And every time that happens, if you've ever been somewhere, that's always a challenge for your security and IT staff. So with a product like Zscalers, you can really streamline those things. And then we all know about the problems of legacy network and access to your applications. In today's age, clinicians, patients, everyone is demanding access to their applications from anywhere at any time. I don't see that going away anytime in the near future. So when we think about migrating applications to AWS, there's a few different use cases that come up. Some customers will want to migrate to AWS. Oftentimes there's a use case where they want to have a disaster recovery location. And that can be a way that they decide to move forward in trying out AWS in the cloud. We had another customer come up and talk yesterday about that was their gateway into moving their app to AWS. And once they set up their DR solution, they decided it worked so well that that's where they were going to run from. Other use cases might include your decision to go global. We can rapidly accelerate that for you with a migration into AWS. With the planning and execution, always having security as a top priority. And Zscaler will complement our native AWS services to allow you to maintain a secure organization from end to end before, during, and after your migration. I think Steven's going to take us through some more details about ZPA.
Yeah,
That's right, you have a mic.
I like it. So the other thing to note too is, again, I don't care where your apps live. I would like them to live in AWS, but we can do on-prem too. If you can tell me every app that your users use today, I will give you the money in my wallet. And cherry on top, if you can tell me the ports and protocols that it uses too. So one of the other things about ZPA or private access is this idea of I can do a wildcard policy and identify and discover the applications. So you can then securely say, hey, Sarah shouldn't be able to access the EHR, but she is accessing the EHR. But Jackie should be able to, and I see that because they didn't give me good documentation. They're using port 4030 and maybe 443 and a bunch of other stuff. So again, makes it really simple to then define policy based on that. Because I don't want everybody to have access to everything, right? Like at the end of the day, I want zero trust. So I can do the click next, done, because I can identify what apps they're using. That is a perfect world for me. And now I can go out and play golf or whatever other fun things that people do. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so it wouldn't be golf by any means. But if I think about use cases, oh, there we go. If I think about use cases, I'm sure they're around somewhere. I see their booth over there. They're a large EHR provider. I don't care what EHR provider it is, but we'll use our friends over there at HIMSS. This is the usual thing you'll see, is these published applications on the internet. Citrix.blah at .org, right? Public facing thing. Or I have a VPN and now I extended my network everywhere. And so being able to say, hey, what if this gets breached, right? What if the published app section gets breached because they have a day zero? What if somebody gets on my VPN and then causes ransomware because they can now see everything on that network? Instead, we're looking something like, again, threat actors, right? As I was saying, anywhere. There we go. We build this slide out real quick for you guys. Makes it easier for me to talk so you guys don't think that I'm crazy. But now I can say, go out to the internet, right? You got an internet connection, you got Zscaler. That's all you need. So you got client connector, you can do a client list. It doesn't matter if you have a third-party vendor that needs access to it. And then if you have something in Boston, where I'm close to being based out of, like I said, I'm in Maine, so New England is close to my heart. Or maybe you have US East, right, for Epic, because you have a read-only environment. You should be able to access either or, depending on the situation, depending on the conditions you have set. Like I said, we can do granular, hey, do I have antivirus? Do I not? What do you want to use for a criteria? But we completely remove the public attack surface. There is no more public attack surface. There's no more Google searching a list of people who have such and such VDI vendor. And now it's all identity based too, right? So again, I'm able to look at the context of the user and dictate based on the user and what device and what they're trying to do and decide should they be allowed or not. And then it's secure internet and SaaS for all users as well, right? Like, doesn't matter, again, where your apps are, as long as I can get access to them. And ideally, I want them in my friends in AWS. And the other common use case I see a lot of is radiology. Radiology is tough, right? It's 4K images. You need to have really cool GPUs. My brother-in-law actually is a rad analyst for a small hospital in New Hampshire, and he had somebody go on Facebook cruising around on the MRI machine and infected the machine, right? Probably a bad idea. But if you were going to do remote radiology, how do I then ensure that it's secure as well? And so when I think about VPNs, I think about, hey, what if there's latency, right? Now I can't download the image. I have a customer out of California with their VPN. 30 minutes to download an image, to do any kind of read. 30 minutes. It's a long time to download. They would go to lunch, come back, do a read. if it's just slow, right? VDI does not do radiology. They'll do what reads, right? I was in the VDI space for 10 years. The issue with VDI is always pixel compression, right? If I have a blur on the screen, that might be a tumor that I now misdiagnose. I was at Vive a few weeks ago. There's a gentleman I met there, started a whole AI company on radiology because his father was misdiagnosed with cancer. And it took them a very long time to figure out that he didn't actually have cancer because of a misdiagnosis in radiology reads. So if I can get you to Zscaler, which like I said earlier, I have proven goes to the same location, that's about 30% faster. If I can get you one extra read a week, let's just say, and it might be more, right? I like to be conservative. I did an analysis with a customer with, I think it was 500 remote radiologists. It's about $30 million in revenue a year extra. I can tell you that Zscaler does not cost $30 million a year. I can tell you that AWS probably doesn't cost $30 million a year either. That's just extra money for you guys to then go invest into what you need to invest in. And again, I'm removing that public attack surface. And let's say there is an issue, right? Because there's always going to be an issue. I need to be able to say hop by hop where that issue may be. And so this is actually my environment. You can see that it was actually going outbound from my lab in Texas. If I would have expanded that out, there was a certain ISP that was giving me a hard time and seeing that latency. So now I can go make an informed decision and say, hey, my ISP is really slow today. Can you guys troubleshoot this, right? I'm sure a lot of you have enterprise agreements with your ISPs, for instance. So I can now proactively say, hey, maybe your CPU is too high. And I can give you an alert on that to be able to say what it looks like. And same thing for EHRs as well. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, we still are trying to connect you to your data centers or wherever they're going to be, and then doing that latency analysis. The one thing I didn't do before you guys leave is tell a dad joke. I always tell dad jokes before I start a presentation. This presentation went off the rails. I didn't do one. I don't know what to do. So I'll give you one real quick. What do you do with a doctor or with a broken heart? What's the best way to mend it? Cardiotherapy. With that, thank you guys. Out of here. Appreciate it.